what was the climate? And I have listed here just 30 of the scandals that rock this country. That, I mean, as we speak, we are still in shock. You remember the banking sector cleanup? Eventually, we got to know that over 25 billion Ghana cedis was spent. And yet, after spending that 25 billion Ghana cedis on a problem which independent analysis revealed that we should not have spent more than 12 billion, we still have people who have not been paid, people who have not had access to their savings in these banks. And even how it was done, the opacity, the favoritism and all of that. This is a matter which is worth investigating. We must go into that. 25 billion Ghana cedis. Imagine what it can do for our country. You know, then you remember the luxurious presidential private jet travels, which are exposed. We have in this country a presidential jet in pristine condition, ordered by President Kufuor. Arrived during President Mills's tenure. He used it without complaining. President Mahama used it without complaining. Suddenly, Akufo-Addo comes to power and he says that it's not luxurious enough. And you remember all my questions in Parliament. They refused to respond. When the National Security Minister came, he said, oh, look, yeah, these are national security matters. We still don't know, you know, who the contractors were, how it was procured, the procurement processes and all of that. And from the tracking that I did, over 100 million Ghana cedis was spent on that really ostentatious, extravagant, profligate, sybaritic,
over 100 million cedis spent on the presidential
so
travels.
that is a matter that we must go to.
This 239,000 euros is the cost of the aircraft BBJ-3 that was bought for the presidency.
Yes, no, this is the private jet, which was used. That was his favorite one. The BBJ, the BBJ-3.
And it cost how much? 239,000 euros
for an hour.
For an hour.
For an hour. Yes, that's how the taxpayer was saddled. Yes, an hour. Yeah,
I see.
Then you have the infamous National Cathedral, $58 million. Ghanaians are asking questions. $58 million, and all we see is that sinkhole, the world's most expensive pit. At the time, the exchange rate over 339 million Ghana cedis. Ghanaians are asking questions. And remember that there is now a Shraj report after my complaint. Shraj confirming that this whole project is illegal. Read page 152, 153 of the Shraj report, saying that this whole project should be stopped immediately. It's illegal. There has to be a forensic audit. We must retrieve our monies. So nobody can say we don't have justification in this country for aura. $58 million. Imagine what $58 million can do. Then this $58 million, you have somebody like Carrie Summers, who is cooling off in America, keeping her $6 million. He said he was going to raise funds for the National Cathedral project. This doesn't happen anywhere.
How much funds has he raised?
Nothing. And yet it's, yes. And you see, what happens in the industry is that when you raise the funds, then you are given a commission. It's only under the Akufo-Addo Bawumia government that he was giving money upfront to go raise the funds.
He has not raised
it. He hasn't raised anything. They came to Parliament. We asked them to account and tell us all of what has come in.
So what was he paid the $6 million
to go raise funds? He says he's the CEO of the Nehemiah Group.
Okay.
So all of those monies have to be retrieved. We need to recover all of that. Then the inflationary pricing with David Ajay. And you see David Ajay suddenly under the Akufo-Addo Bawumia government. You remember the architects of our country had to come to, all of them wrote a petition that, why? Since you came into office, everything David Ajay, everything. And it's so expensive too. And a lot of times he's just single-sourced. National Cathedral, he was single-sourced under emergency provisions. Abuse of the procurement law. So David Ajay alone, National Cathedral, the Marine Drive project, the Trade Fair project, Du Bois Center project, the new chambers, that's Professor Okwe wanted to do. It was him, everything him. So all architects of Ghana wrote a petition. That why? So now Ghana has only one architect. So all that inflationary pricing, extortionist pricing which he engaged in, questions have to be asked. The abuse of the procurement laws. So National Cathedral is a can of worms. Look, and what makes matters worse, still on National Cathedral, are you aware that as we speak, 32 months now, the National Cathedral Secretariat, they are still receiving salaries. And we intercepted evidence from the payroll system of our country. Even as we speak, if we don't stop them, end of December, the National Cathedral Secretariat will still receive their salaries.
Their response and defense.
And so far, over 2.2 million Ghana cedis has been paid to just 3 people at the National Cathedral Secretariat, and there are more workers.
Well, Reverend Dr. Joyce Ayi says the fact that there's no construction going on doesn't mean that there's no work going on at the Secretariat. They have to be paid. You heard that response, didn't you?
And it's you see, their impunity. That is why they've suffered this humiliating. You know, she was a member of the campaign team, Obama's campaign. I'm not surprised.
Was a member?
Yes, you didn't see the list. She was on the advisory group.
Okay.
You know, and I'm not surprised that the Ghanaian people have punished them that way. Who, if you are using your private resources to do a construction, and you come into some difficulty, you suspend the project, will you keep paying the workers at the site? Will you keep paying them?
It says it's a contract.
You know,
Mr. Sefo says it's contractual. There's a contract in place. So.
There's no contract.
In labor law, you can.
These are secretary staff, political appointees.
Okay.
Political appointees just engaged. They should have been laid off.
I see.
You know.
Let's.
Then you have the almighty $108 million ambulance scandal. We have a lot of retrievals to do here. This involves the president's daughter's business partners, and of course the president's daughter's baby daddy as well. A day before Ken Ofori left office, you remember that I intercepted documents where he had authorized the release of $10 million, and that's the letter. So we are not talking about conjecture, concoctions, fabrications. That is the letter. I mean, nobody has questioned the authenticity. It is unimpeachable. Now, this $108 million, when you look at the breakdown, it includes the inflation of the ambulances, which didn't follow proper procurement processes. You have a situation where the servicing contract, if you read the Auditor General's report, they gave it to these companies that were hurriedly put together, the Stephen Okoro gang, before even their companies were incorporated. Can you believe that? And then, after that, they requested for another $34.9 million, which Ken Ofori was about to pay, ordered an initial $10 million release, which we had to intercept and block. And again, when you talk about the OSP and how, you know, that institution must be totally overhauled. More than 7 months since my petition. Ask me, what's going on? What is going on?
You petitioned the OSP
on this matter.
On this matter.
And rather, what is happening is that the key architects have been allowed to leave the jurisdiction.
I read this and I wanted to authenticate it from you, that you're saying that as far as you do know, the persons behind this ambulance case have left the country.
They've left the country. They left on the 26th and 27th of November. 3 of them, 3 key architects. Stephen Okoro, you know, the business partner. Remember that he, together with Jankroma Akufo-Addo, Edwina Akufo-Addo, formed Good Grow Company, formed the SFO Company Limited, and other companies, conglomerate of companies. Most of them formed when the president came into office. They have fled. Stephen Okoro, Frank Ajekum, and then Vivian Oponchecheku.
But if
fortunately, you've been monitoring the engagement with the diplomatic community. All of them are pledging their support for ORA. You heard the UN team. You've heard other diplomats. They are saying that, look, they will give us all the international collaboration that we need. So those who think that they are running out, look, this country now is this world now is a very small village. You will be found out. So I don't think that running away will save anybody. You know, then you have the Sputnik V vaccine. This is another one that really, I mean, just X me. It's just, I mean, so annoying that we have a Russian embassy here. The health minister decided to go deal with some sheikhs from Dubai who had no link with the Russians, who are the producers of the Sputnik V vaccine, the manufacturers of the Sputnik V vaccine. We met the ambassador who said, look, we have not been contacted. And as we speak, we have lost $2.8 million. There's a parliamentary committee's report, bipartisan, where both sides of the House concluded that Ghana has been swindled by these shonky sheikhs and that the $2.8 million have to be retrieved. You remember the health minister?
Yeah, well,
there was a public inquiry. Yes. He said he wasn't in the right frame of mind. So, and tell me that Ghana doesn't need oral. You know what $2.8 million can do? So we have to go after them and we have to retrieve the $2.8 million. Then you have the COVID expenditure, 21.3 billion. The Auditor General's report, the Auditor General is saying that there were so many diversions, total mismanagement of the COVID-19 funds. We clearly have to retrieve. You remember the MPP functionaries, that the executive in the north, who publicly said that, look, they were just sharing the COVID funds. You remember the audit report on... Felicia Tete. Parliamentary candidate.
They gave, but she lost.
You know, it's good she lost. You know, she publicly said they were sharing it like confetti. You saw what happened at the Ministry of Information. You know, so a damning Auditor General's report. And you think that a government that has been told that, look, we want our monies back, that's why we are voting for you, they shouldn't pursue this and retrieve these funds and rechannel it towards the construction of our country. So 21.3 billion, look at the staggering amounts we are talking about.
But you see, then my challenge, and we'll come to it. My challenge is that when this was flagged, this is in the 2021-2022 Auditor General's report. What has been the challenge in retrieving this money? Because when it comes to Auditor Generals over time, you capture a lot of financial infractions in the report, and it ends there. Public Accounts Committee will sit, we'll all cry about it, and we don't see any retrievals. It goes beyond the last 8 years.
Brilliant question. Are you aware? The Public Account Committee chairman revealed this a few weeks ago, that throughout his tenure, the Honorable James Aveji, that respected, accountant and chair of the Public Account Committee, he's done a yeoman's job for our country. I don't think we have celebrated him enough. He says that all their reports, not one has received the attention of the Attorney General throughout the 8-year period. Not one. Can you believe that? Because it's the Attorney General who must prosecute. They are not interested. They are not interested. That is why the Ghanaian people have voted overwhelmingly in such an emphatic manner for President-elect, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, to come and retrieve our funds and tell me that we don't need oral, that this country doesn't need oral. Is the most defining and consequential provision in the manifesto of the NDC.
Let's look at that.
Then you have the very scandalous Frontiers Healthcare Services COVID-19 airport testing thing. You remember the conservative analysis we have done. They raked in over $130 million. Over $130 million. Now remember that at the vetting of the health minister, he conceded, the Honorable Ajimamenu, that they allowed Frontiers, this company owned by a Nigerian Benedict Peters, who is the mastermind of this whole thing, and what their Nigerian collaborators have done to Ghana. There's Benedict Peters, there's Philip Olaya, Stephen Okoro, and the rest. So Frontiers, the health minister admitted that they didn't even have the license from EFRA. And yet they were allowed. And these are people going to collect.
That's the regulator for the health.
The regulator for the, yes.
So they didn't have.
They didn't have a license.
How were they providing this testing service?
Because they once, under the Akufo-Addo government, once you are connected, once you have presidential cover, you can do whatever you want. Impunity.
So how did this end?
And this, after many months, you remember how they ignored our parliamentary questions, all the ministers were running away from them. They didn't want to, respond to our questions. Eventually, we did an RTI, and we found out that every $150 that Frontiers charged, Ghana was giving only $10. Can you believe that? Can you believe that?
No, so $150.
Yes, you didn't build the airport. I mean, you didn't even go through the procurement laws. You didn't have a license, and then they were making $140 out of every $150. And those who negotiated this, you are saying that they shouldn't.
I think the transport minister was in parliament. Sorry, that's the
yes,
minister.
Yes, the transport minister. You're right.
Was in parliament. He gave a certain figure, which was contested quite.
Yeah.
I recall that.
Yes. So our RTI that we did exposed them. When we because we called for the contract, and to our shock, $150. The government of Ghana, or the people of Ghana, the people who build the airport, all of us and our institutions, all of us, just $10 out of the $150. And imagine, look at the yeoman's work that institutions like Noguchi carried out during COVID. Couldn't they have done this?
Well, the justification was that they were the ones who funded the entire infrastructure that was
oh, please, what infrastructure? For there's a few glass panels, please. So that cabal, we need to retrieve our funds. Then the Bank of Ghana, you remember the Bank of Ghana headquarters?
Yes.
Because look, these reminders are important.
Has been commissioned.
They are important. And you recall that I intercepted all the documents. Apparently, this project, what the board approved, the Bank of Ghana board approved, and the PPA approval they went for on the 28th of January 2020, $81.8 million. That should have been the cost of the project. How did this balloon from $81.8 million to $121 million by 4th September 2020, between January and September, balloon from 81 to 121? And then the other document I intercepted from the Central Tender Review Committee, it ballooned to $222.7 million.
I recall when this matter came up, you were here a number of times. The explanation that we got from some persons in the central bank was that they had to do changes to the original design. That led to an increase in the cost. And so they added more floors, they added other adjoining structures. Yeah. That led to this increase, and then obviously the exchange rate differentials as well, because it's quoted in dollars. Does that suffice?
I mean, big joke.
Why is that?
Look, the Central Tender Review documents we intercepted, they queried the Bank of Ghana that under our laws, the procurement laws are very clear. All of those variations beyond a certain percentage, a certain amount, you start afresh. The quantums involved, they should have started the procurement process afresh. They should have redone it. They did it. So they were queried. And that claim that, exchange rate differential, this is a dollar contract. If it was a CD contract, then they can make that point. But the dollar, which has been appreciating, why these huge variations? And you don't follow due process. You don't go back to redo the procurement and go back for a fresh procurement approval under the PPA, the Public Procurement Authority, and you say that we should accept this. So that whole Bank of Ghana saga, for a bankrupt institution which has become insolvent for the first time in the history of our country, to engage in this. Look, and does it even make sense that a project that should not even have started in the first place? I mean, what was the rush during a period of economic crisis? Why do you want to build a new headquarters? And fanciful things like a car park that can take over 6,000 cars and all of that,
Because they said the other side.
So it should not have been a priority. But even if you do it, at least be conscious of the times. And then you start at $81 million. And you remember that when we kept asking them, how much is it? They were all running away. You remember that the Bank of Ghana official refused to tell the Ghanaian people the cost of this project until we had to intercept these documents. So look, this $222.7 million They are serious questions. And it is a matter which ought to be pursued. And that is why in the manifesto, the NDC is saying that there will be probes into all of these matters. We don't want the Ghanaian people to think that we only raise these matters for votes.
We're going to come to that. But you see, because this building has been commissioned by the president.
Not completed, by the way.
Yes.
Another grand deception.
Yes,
the analysis we've done is just about 70%.
70%
it should not have been commissioned. Yeah.
Anyway, so
then we come to the $11.9 million Pwalugu Dam expenditure. This is how $11.9 million looks like. I mean, under this government.
Well, I recall the Agric Minister answered the question when we asked him about this. He says, all this went into the preparatory work. And you know what goes into the preparatory work. So this $11.9 million was not for the construction.
I can never know what goes into preparatory works under the Akufo-Addo government. $11.9 million.
But engaging some research work.
Have you read our annual? I'm glad Honorable Asifwa is
value
here.
For money and so on.
Read our annual public debt reports. We go begging countries, sometimes for $5 million, $2 million, $1.5 million, $3 million, and this is what we have done with $11.9 million. And we've been asking them. We want a breakdown of the so-called preparatory work. Up to now, we've been asking them in Parliament.
They haven't given you?
They haven't provided them. $11.9 million. And that is why the Auditor General, if you read the Auditor General's report, the Auditor General is not convinced and has flagged this matter. So we will look into it. Then you have the 250 million single source inflated contract awarded to Resource Assets Limited, Baumia's brother's company, Ibrahim Baumia, who really controls cocoa roads in this country. And when you read the Auditor General's report, it says that 85% of cocoa road projects were single source. Can you believe that? Baumia and Akufo-Addo put out tweets when they were in opposition that the era of sole sourcing is coming to an end, that everything will be done competitively, that we will have value for money, that inflation of contracts will not be allowed. Read the Auditor General's report on cocoa roads. 85% of cocoa road projects were single source. I mean, such a betrayal. And then you see their family members in there, at the receiving end. All of these inflated road projects, we need to look into them. Then you have the 85 million Ghana city stadium renovations, another family affair. Kelvin Ofori, who owns these companies. And to think that we spent, and before this expose, Ghanaians didn't know that we were spending so much on stadia renovations, Esipon, Tamale, and Accra. And yet, you remember, we disgraced this country, the Akufo-Addo Bawumia government, disgraced this country, something that has never happened. We were banned by CAF and FIFA as a country, that we don't have a FIFA standard pitch. What a shame, what a disgrace. Meanwhile, we have spent 85 million. This I'm talking about actual releases, and I intercepted all the documents. These are the payments.
2023.
Yes.
From 2023 to
actual. This is not just some projection or some contract document.
So there was a rehabilitation in 2019.
Yes. And 2023.
In 2023.
85 million Ghana cedis released, and the Minister of Youth and Sport issued a statement confirming this.
But they gave details why.
Yeah, trying to explain why. We still got the ban, and that the contractor was still at work. And have you gone to Esipon? I went there, took videos. The place is ramshackled. It looks like a pigsty. 85 million Ghana cedis. And you see this business of single source contracts to family members, and there is no follow-up to make sure that they do the job. At least you get the job done. And yet we got a ban. Then you have the 13th African Games. Operational expenses alone, $48 million. And this is far in excess. Parliament had approved 100 million Ghana cedis. That's what they said they needed. And yet, they ended up spending over 600 million Ghana cedis on very, very questionable expenses. And remember that this is the time that they were spending over $18 million on feeding. You remember feeding? And then what they did with accreditation and all of that. The whole 13 African Games, which they have spent over $220 million on. We need value for money.
And this came before the Public Accounts Committee.
And they made a mess of themselves. You follow the proceedings.
Yeah, so
we had to even set up a special committee to look into the 13th African Games. And do you know that as we speak, we have been demanding a full account, a breakdown. The outgoing sports minister has not provided that.
Let's see.
Then you have the almighty SML scan, over $3 billion. You know, Manasseh Azuri did a great job here. You know, they were annually raking in over $100 million. And the KPMG report has vindicated Manasseh Azuri Awuni. And remember that they were refusing to publish the KPMG report. So, under these people's tenure, I mean, it was like there was an organized cabal that just set out to loot, to make sure that the Ghanaian people's resources are taken by a few. And that is why there was so much suffering, so much pain. You know, so when I heard Honorable Sefo earlier saying, oh, they did so much for Ghana, really, you know, the resources that came in, look at where you took our public debt to, from 122 billion to over 750 billion. What do you have to show for it? Should Ghanaians be suffering this way? And it is because of this, because of the siphoning. Then you don't forget there is also the illegal printing that happened at the Bank of Ghana. Over 80 billion Ghana cedis. The Bank of Ghana is saying we were in crisis and so they had to. But our laws are very clear. Illegal. Our laws are very, very clear. You cannot print in excess of 5% of the previous year's revenue. The law is very, very clear.
Well, so they indicated they had to do that to save the economy.
Save the economy. Why didn't they? Why don't you come to Parliament? Why are you not transparent? Why should we discover this? Why do you do this in contravention of the law?
So this would have been subject to parliamentary approval.
Yes, okay. and even that, with the parliamentary approval, there are limits under the law. They didn't do that. Over 80 billion. Imagine what 80 billion Ghana cedis can do. Just look at the figures, not million. 80 billion. So those who are going to say, oh, all right, it's just a witch hunting, it's not necessary and all of that. I mean, have they looked at the figures? Do they remember the cases? Over 80 billion.